Nasty plots, evil schemes, cruel tricks, Dark-type Pokemon are known for their tricky to downright evil tactics in the world of Pokemon. If they had their way, everyone would be kept in the dark about their secrets, but not today. We're going to shed some light on the mysteries of these dark types. I'm Kristijan with PokeBinge, and this is Dark-type Pokemon Theories, BS to Truth Bombs. Dark types aren't above deception. Don't let these next theories fool you, these are BS. Yveltal is a sound type. This theory stems from Gen 6 Pokemon rumors. Gen 6 was a big step for the Pokemon franchise. It was the first set of games with Mega Evolution, and the first set to feature a new gimmick from each generation. Before the release of Gen 6, 3 Pokemon were revealed without further explanation: Xerneas, Yveltal, and Sylveon. At this point, the game had not been released, and the fairy typing had not even been unveiled yet. Theorists guessed the addition of a new typing with the introduction of Sylveon and Xerneas. Since there was a new typing for Xerneas, it would make sense for the other legendary to feature a new type too. The last time there was a new type introduced, there were 2 types, Steel and Dark. It made sense for there to be 2 new types here too. We all know that Yveltal is Dark Flying, and there's no sound type. At the time, the sound type had some decent evidence to support it, but it has since been debunked, obviously. With several new sound-based Pokemon introduced since, like Toxtricity, there's likely not going to be that addition. Drapion is an alternate evolution to Gligar. What do Gligar and Drapion have in common? Apparently more than you'd think. Reddit user Dragoryu3000 talks about theory crafting before the release of Generation 4. Fans made guesses that Gligar evolved into Drapion. Even today, there's evidence to believe that the separate evolution lines were once connected. Both lines are purple, have claws, spikes, and segmented tails. Each Pokemon is also called a Scorpion Pokemon. Gligar is the Fly Scorpion, Gliscor is the Fang Scorpion, and Drapion is the Ogre Scorpion. Pokemon has had a long history of branching evolution paths. Fan favorite Eevee is famous for this. It's not a hard stretch to think that these 2 lines were once connected, especially since it evolves with the Razor Fang item, and there's also the Razor Claw item that causes Sneasel to evolve. Like Clamperl, Slowbro, or even Charcadet, they all have different forms depending on what item is used. We now know the 2 lines are distinctly separate, but it's not hard to imagine the connection between them. Iron Hugulus is the result of a robot and Hydrogon. This comes straight from the Pokédex. It resembles a certain Pokemon introduced in Paranormal Magazine, described as the offspring of a Hydrogon that fell in love with a robot. The Pokédex sets us up to think that this is BS from the start. Unlike the Paranormal Magazines of the Pokemon world, this list is a bit more critical. Iron Hugulus seems to be its own thing. If there was a robot that a Hydrogon fell for, what robot is this? Besides other Paradox forms, there's not any robot Pokemon, and none of the synthetic Pokemon can breed with any Pokemon. The closest thing is a Duraludon, a metal dragon that's in the same egg group as Hydrogon. However, the resulting eggs are never Iron Hugulus either. This theory is just a guess of what is actually going on in the Pokemon world. The Pokédex is not immune to lies itself, evidently. It's hard to tell the exact origins of this Iron Hugulus, but it's certainly not a union of dragon and machine. Just like half-baked evil plans, these next theories are full of holes. King Gambit evolved because of the Tinkerton line. Reddit user Dekyai posts the theory that the Tinkerton line has a direct connection with the King Gambit line. Their reasoning begins with a Pokédex entry for Tinkertuff saying it attacks and plunders whatever it wants. This has been Corviknight famously, but the Pokédex does not limit it to Corviknight necessarily. The theory states that regular Bisharp doesn't evolve in other regions because there are no Tinkerton. Warring Tinkerton pushed Bisharp to evolve to match forces. The King Gambit line is warlike in a similar fashion to Tinkerton. It's not hard to imagine the 2 groups butting heads. King Gambit was an effective enough resistance that they were able to ward off invading Tinkerton and resume fighting each other. This theory is interesting and may very well be the case. However, there's not much concrete evidence here. To evolve a Bisharp, you need to fight and defeat 3 other Bisharp leading a group of Pawniard. The second piece is that they must be holding the item, the leader's crest. If it was any Pokemon holding the crest, this would be more convincing, but this evolution seems to be within its own line and has nothing to do with Tinkerton. Darkrai is a human. This theory comes from Amino user Some Small Boy, who highlights several human-like features of Darkrai. For one, it is distinctly humanoid in shape, especially in anime depictions with thin legs. This Pokemon has human-like intelligence and is one of the few who can speak fully. Lastly, it means no harm to people. Despite being the embodiment of nightmares, Darkrai's Pokédex explains that it actively avoids causing harm to people. This could be because Darkrai was once human itself. The Pokemon world is often made up of creatures who have died and been reborn as Pokemon. Many ghost types are like this, even other dark types are like this. It would not be impossible for Darkrai to have once been a human. What's more likely is that Darkrai is simply a powerful, intelligent Pokemon. Dark types seem to be either the smartest Pokemon or second to psychic types. This accounts for its ability to speak. The rest of the evidence is most likely a coincidence. There's plenty of other mostly humanoid Pokemon and Pokemon that have sympathy for others despite their destructive powers. It's possible that Darkrai was once human, but likely not. Hydrogon once had 3 sentient heads. Tumblr blog I Don't Even Know Zoroark makes a keen observation about the Hydragon line. Why does it go from one sentient head to two sentient heads and then back to just one sentient head? The theory states that Hydragon did at one point have three sentient heads. After years of evolution, the Hydrogons that have the two non-sentient heads became the ones we know today. From reading the Pokédex about Xylus, we learn quickly that two heads are not better than one. This Pokemon's existence is constant infighting between its own two heads. Each tries to dominate the other. Knowing the dark personality of Hydreigon, one could imagine how problematic having three separate sentient heads would be for it. The Pokédex goes out of its way to explain that the arm heads don't even have brains. It's such a strange jump from two heads back to one. What happened to the other mind? It's likely either lost or combined once Xylus evolves. Hydreigon is much more powerful when left to devour and destroy everything it sees with no conflicting motives to stop it. This theory does a good job to explain the inconsistency here. At the same time, it was never too much of an issue in the first place. Pokemon evolutions are often radical changes. Going back to one thinking head is not the craziest form change by a long shot. The next group of theories is no longer shrouded in darkness. There is some truth here. These theories are possible. Guzzlord is an Alolan muck. In perhaps one of the most disturbing sequences in Pokemon, in the wilds of Ultra Space, you stumble upon a Guzzlord feasting on the remains of an alternate dimension Alola. This theory states that Guzzlord's existence is that of a mutated Alolan muck. Amino user The Zipping Eon highlights several similarities between the two Pokemon. They both share the dark type, they both are depicted to be gluttons, and they are both found in the Alola region. The Zipping Eon also finds several parallels between Guzzlord and Godzilla. Guzzlord is shown to destroy cities on a rampage, just like Godzilla. The explanation is that a power plant in Howoli City went awry and caused a rapid mutation in Alolan muck. Following this line of thought, it makes sense that they would have similar origins. Godzilla came from an irradiated lizard, and Guzzlord came from an irradiated Alolan muck. This certainly adds a fun layer of narrative to each Pokemon. However, this theory lacks hard evidence. It's more likely this rampaging Ultra Beast managed to attack the city without a trainer like you to fight it. It remains possible that Ultra Energy in-game caused a change in Alolan muck. At the same time, Guzzlord could be a regular denizen of Ultra Space, like the rest of the Ultra Beasts. Mega Gyarados in Generation 2. This theory points out the resemblance between Mega Gyarados and a mysterious Pokemon in the anime. In episode 244 of the anime called Enlighten Up, each character undergoes a dream sequence. This theory comes from the dream Misty had. She doesn't dream of Mega Gyarados specifically, but sees a silhouette of a legendary water Pokemon. This creature has a strong resemblance to Mega Gyarados. Was it all in her head? Perhaps. Could Misty have seen Mega Evolution before and remembered it here? If she had, she should have recognized it. There's not a ton to this theory, but it often makes you wonder. Pokemon tends to release things out of order. Sometimes it is genuine foreshadowing, other times it's just coincidence. This lesser known appearance is likely not a hint of Mega Evolution several generations later. However, it is entirely possible that the design for Mega Gyarados drew inspiration from this original design. Sharpedo and Garchomp are cousins. Similar to Drapion and Gliscor being related, there's another smart connection between the Sharpedo line and the Garchomp line. Amino user Aqua Leader Archie does an excellent outline comparing the two lines of Pokemon. Each are based on sharks. They have remarkably similar color palettes and design elements. They share the rough skin ability. It's not hard to imagine that they are related as a species. They even share a yellow star in their designs. Archie goes on to theorize that Carvana may have found themselves far from home and were forced to adapt. Here, they began to walk on land and dwell in caves as Gible. Garchomp, now a land shark, favors the land and sky. This could have also played into the whole land and sea theme of Generation 3 where Sharpedo was from. Yveltal isn't evil. Dark types are often associated with evil. In Japan, the type is literally called the evil type, but some of these Pokemon are good, even noble at times. This is a curious case for Yveltal. This Pokemon is responsible for allowing Pokemon to die in-game. If not for Yveltal, every living thing would be immortal, which would lead to other problems in the Pokemon world. It's easy to assume that the embodiment of death would be an evil force. This is not necessarily the case. There's very little we actually know about Yveltal. In the anime, we see it go on destructive rampages after being awakened from a slumber. The only thing to stop it is its counterpart, Xerneas. Yveltal seems decidedly evil at first glance. At the same time, this is how it behaves after being disturbed. We don't get to see how Yveltal behaves regularly. Reddit user Kakyoan Crusader theorizes that this Yveltal's reputation as an agent of evil is undeserved. After all, Yveltal did calm down after Xerneas showed up. They did not need to bring Zygarde into the fray. Yveltal could just be the other side of the coin. There's no life without death. Yveltal could be a totally okay Pokemon if not for the fact that it's the embodiment of death. This theory doesn't have much evidence per se, but there's not much known about Yveltal in the first place. It remains possible. Wait, is there something behind you? Probably not. Do you want to check anyway? Most likely. These theories also are most likely. Roaring Moon is related to Mega Evolution. Since the reveal of Roaring Moon, there have been comparisons between this form and Mega Salamence. The resemblance here is uncanny. This theory states that they're directly related to each other. What sets this theory apart is that the Pokédex itself points out the similarities. According to an article in a dubious magazine, this Pokemon has some connection to a phenomenon that occurs in a certain region. This has strange implications for both Mega Evolutions and Paradox Pokemon. This somewhat seems like Primal Reversion? In this reading of the situation, Mega Evolution and Primal Reversions are essentially the same things. As the theory goes, each transformation reverts a Pokemon back to a primal state. Roaring Moon could be the primal form of Salamence, and Salamence can revert back to the state with Mega Evolution. Another way to take this theory is the imagination theory. If Paradox Pokemon are imagined into existence, it makes sense that someone who had seen a Mega Salamence may imagine a Primal Salamence with similar features. It's a whole dragon before the egg situation here. N is a Zoroark. Surrounding one of the most interesting characters in Pokemon is an equally interesting theory. This states that the trainer and antagonist in Black and White, N, is actually a Zoroark. This popular theory is hinted at in the games with several design and story choices. Even the game mechanics line up with the character. Zoroarks can create illusionary disguises. The character N is equally unique, even said to have the heart of a Pokemon in-game. There are two problems with this theory though. One, there's never been any concrete evidence of it. Two, how could a Zoroark keep up a charade like that? We get N's backstory when he was a child. He was raised by Pokemon before Ghetsis raised him. At the same time, if it were possible, it would be a clever Zoroark to do it. Brute Bonnet inspired the Pokeball. Not even the Pokédex for this mushroom Pokemon knows what's up with the Pokeball design. It doesn't make sense for it to be camouflage, as Brute Bonnet is implied to be older than the invention. It doesn't make sense for them to be evolved for lures, as the Pokédex states repeatedly that they make poor lures. Brute Bonnet's Pokeball iconography is so strange. It's like the Waluigi of Pokeball iconography. It's a reimagining of a reflection of a copy. What's even weirder is its existence implies that it came first, like if Waluigi was first and then we eventually got to Mario. The closest thing to an explanation for the design is a rumor. In the Scarlet entry for Fungus, it guesses that the inventor of the modern day Pokeball just liked fungus. The only way this makes sense for Brute Bonnet is it's a coincidence. Mushrooms in general have such a wide range of shapes and patterns. This Pokeball icon could just be a strange accidental shape for this mushroom dino to take. This line of thought begins to poke holes in everything we know about Paradox Pokemon, creating more questions than answers, so let's just move on.
No dawn comes before the darkness.
The light of truth follows the darkest hour. Up next are the truth bombs. Hisuian Quillfish was eradicated by fishers. Pokemon has no issues talking about ecological issues within its games. Reddit user Bobby Nibblesticks talks about the hidden story of Hisuian Quillfish's extinction. In the Pokédex, we learn that fishers hate Quillfish because they spray poison everywhere. Their hatred of this evolution line is also mentioned in Overquill's only Dex entry. We learn that it's been given the nickname Sea Fiend. The Pokédex makes it clear that Hisuian Quillfish make it tremendously hard to fish in the area. Thus, the Pokemon were hunted into extinction to allow fishers to work undisturbed. What's interesting about this theory, and also kind of sad, is that we learn about this extinction after it's too late in our Pokemon journey. Spiritomb is made up of human spirits. This theory is a rehash of a commonly known piece of Pokemon lore. Spiritomb is said to be made up of human souls bound to the odd keystone. Until now, we did not know the limitations of their humanity. From Legends Arceus, we find that these souls aren't just human, but still fully self-aware. Spiritomb is made up of a collection of 108 spirits. Vessa is a character directly tied to Spiritomb. Vessa disappears to reveal the last spirit. This implies that individual spirits of this collection are more than just wicked humans. These humans are fully conscious, thinking souls. This is canon, but there remains mystery surrounding Vessa in particular. Perhaps she's the vessel soul binding the rest to the odd keystone. But real quick, before we get to our last entry, if you're enjoying this video, do us a huge favor and hit that subscribe button and notification bell. We ask because we'd really appreciate the help getting to our next milestone, and we have lots more videos we'd love to share with you. Thanks so much. The Treasures of Ruin were gifts to an ancient king of Paldea. The Treasures of Ruin are one of the greatest mysteries of the current generation. There are several theories surrounding them and their role in the Pokemon world. They seem to be heavily inspired by Chinese folklore, so what are they doing in the Pokemon equivalent of Spain? The current lore conveys exactly what they were doing in Paldea. There was an ancient king of Paldea who was obsessed with Area Zero. This king took several expeditions into the area with the intention of finding great treasures. A merchant sold him the 4 cursed items that make up the ruinous quartet: the vessel, the beads, the tablets, and the sword. It is said that this king's greed awoke the 4 treasures of ruin and caused the fall of that empire. This piece of history is not obvious, but made apparent by the history expert in the game, Ryfort. It's not often we get a history expert in-game who straight up gives information plainly. This still leaves many questions up in the air. Did the cursed items come from the Pokemon world's equivalent of China? Who was the merchant? Was it Volo the evil time-traveling merchant? Also, what's the real treasure of Area Zero? But let us know down in the comment section which of these theories about Dark-type Pokemon you think is the biggest truth bomb. And tell us what we should cover next. Make sure to hit that notification bell and binge our other Pokemon videos. Thanks for watching!